You see, something is going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the NY Patriot Show. This is actually the first live I've done in a while, and it's the first live I've done since my YouTube got nuked. So, yeah, this is, I guess, officially the first live for Rejects and Friends. And today, I have my amazing co-host, Canadian co-host, Teresa. What is up? You want to say hi to everybody? Let everybody know where they can find you.
How are you?
Good, very good. And let everybody know about Spiritual Gangsters in case they don't know.
Yeah, for sure. So I have my own show with you called The Spiritual Gangsters. We talk with really interesting people every week. It's always a good chat about personal stuff, but it always leads back to like the bigger picture. So yeah, come check that out for sure.
Definitely. And today I have a special guest on. It was a listener, a fan, somebody who hit me up and sent me some things. And I was like, damn, dude, yeah, I got to get you on my show. And we got to chop some shit up. So today we have Ethan Indigo. He's going to cover, I love the fucking name, Idiots, Zealots, Elitists, and Patriots. I mean, he had Patriot in there, so I had to have him on. You know what I'm saying? So
I knew weird vibe.
So here's Ethan Indigo. Would you like to let people know where they could find your stuff as well?
You know, I'm all over the internet. So I got little pages on all the websites. I don't think no one's faking me yet. And I have a bunch of books on Amazon people can check out. And you know, I write pretty frequently and share my writing on Twitter and Facebook and the usual.
Yes, and you do have a Weebly account, right? I think I did add that in the show notes.
Yes, yeah, I got a couple of Weebly accounts. One, the Matrix of Four, another one, the Geometry of Energy, are the more popular ones. But again, people can you know just do a quick search and find me. And no one's fronting on my name yet.
Not yet. All right, so yeah, let me repeat the name again. I'm sorry. Idiots, Zealots, Elitists, and Patriots. So let's get into that.
Yeah,
let's break that title down just for everybody real quick.
Exactly. You know, I was coming up with a way to define patriotism in a way that was nonpartisan and applicable in any situation. And I was trying to write about the idea with also an Orwellian view, which the world is very Orwellian, and I wanted to use some of the wisdom that I was inspired by Orwell and to write this concept. And I was coming up with the idea, and I wanted to design it in homage to or parallel with the Complete Idiots Guides. And so I was like, all right, it's the Complete Patriots Guide. And so then I started to actually conceptualize the idea and, you know, sideline advice to people. When you can contrast, correspond, and compare, you can really thoroughly find out the validity of an idea and improve on it, whether it's your own or debate it or whatever. But contrast, compare, and correspond, you can really find a great way to explain yourself as well. And so when I was trying to explain what I meant as patriotism, not as a, you know, warmongering, jingo, you know, the USA is best, as just a reasonable, hey, the USA is the best.
No, but I think you're right. I think the word patriot has almost gotten turned into like a United USA nationalist, really, in a sense.
Oh, it totally has been tabooed. And when I started saying that word, I realized it pretty quickly that people would make assumptions about what you meant. And usually it had to do with being kind of a closed-minded, might is right, go USA kind of thinking. And so as I was contrasting and finding correspondences and comparing, I came up with the idea of defining patriot with the contrast of idiots zealots, and elitists. And so at first, it was just a simple way to explain this idea, which I'll get to. But as I researched the idea and found more and more correspondences, I kind of was blown away by the potential relationships of the idea. And one of the main articles or relationships that I write about is relating the Patriots, or rather relating the idiots, zealots, elitists, and patriots with the wise monkeys. And the wise monkeys are a trinity with most often lacking the fourth part. Usually the wise monkeys are seen as a set of three, lacking the fourth monkey, which is really the only one that you'd want to be or empathize
You know
with.
what's wild? I hate to interrupt you, but real quick.
Please, no, you're not interrupting.
I'm almost positive when we covered the Order of Quetzalcoatl on the Occult Rejects, I thought it was weird how like they had there was an order in Canada, or a lodge, that had a pin. They all have their own pins. And they actually had the see no evil, hear no evil, whatever the other one is. They had that, but a fourth one on the pin. And I was like, that's interesting that they put a fourth one on there. And now you're saying a fourth monkey. So this is interesting.
Yes, and the fourth monkey is fear no evil and do no evil. And of course, see no evil covers its eyes, hear no evil covers its ears, speak no evil covers its mouth. And actually, I correspond the speak no evil with the elitists. And what do elitists do? Hey, I got something I'm going to tell you and nobody else.
That's what the mafia does when they're worried about people lip reading. when they're being watched.
That's what everyone does. Yeah, of course.
Wasn't that was even in a movie, right? Wasn't like Joe Pesci and somebody like talking, smoking cigarettes and like, oh, they're fucking watching this. Fucking watching
You're in New York. Everybody does that. Like, I'm going to tell you this. So, but really, that's just a physical demonstration of what they alliterate in much more bigger circles. Yeah. Holding on to elitist information is how people benefit, right? Especially in the information era, right? I mean, information is power. We all know that. And that's what elitists do. They hold on to information. Contrast that with patriots, fear no evil, do no evil, who is depicted as the monkey who holds its dantian. And this is the idea of essence or center. And from our essence or center, every movement originates. And that's why the fear no evil, the fourth monkey, the unsaid monkey holds its abdomen, because it makes no move. It looks, listens, and observes. But fear will kind of compel you to do things for elitists sometimes, right? So the patriot just chills, and it's going to say something and do something, right? It has no fear. So the idiots, they don't want to look at reality. They cover their eyes. The zealots want to orient themselves in their maintained perspective, right? So they don't want to hear anything new. So the four wise monkeys depict these archetypes, these political archetypes, perfectly. And in Mandarin and Japanese and a couple other similar dialects and languages, the number 4 is a homonym with death. So actually, in some of these cultures, when they build skyscrapers, they don't have the number fourth floor, as akin to some buildings don't have the 13th floor in the West, right? So 4 is a homonym for death, but more so symbolic for completion. 4 is symbolic for completion, not necessarily death, but death is a penultimate completion.
Well, you know what's really interesting, just real quick, you're talking about the number 4. Even on the Tree of Life, you have the supernal triad, the first 3 at the top. Those are kind of in spirit. And as soon as you finally kind of hit the flesh, that's the 4th sphere. And then that would be kind of like the death of the spirit and now into the physical body.
Right. I would say that's not so coincidental why we celebrate the death and resurrection of the Jesus Christ story during the winter solstice, which I guess you could number the seasons, the 4 seasons in any order, but the death and resurrection, of course, corresponds with the sun motion during that time frame, of course. So the fourth aspect is something shared, a phenomenon and a symbology shared throughout the world, certainly.
Very well said. There was something you said before that fucked me up, and I wanted to say something, and now I fucking forgot what I was thinking.
That's all right. I can expand.
It brought me back to the whole frog idea, but I can't remember. Oh, sitting there and doing nothing. I was like, maybe that's what the frog sitting there and doing, not moving.
That's that. The fear no evil is looking, listening, and has the ability to speak, but is holding stillness. And in fact, one of the most powerful meditations is just standing. I mean, sitting too, but there are standing meditations that really condition the body to be a better functional human being.
Totally different sitting or laying down than standing and meditating. Totally different.
Yeah, and most Zen meditation comes from Zhenjiang, excuse my killing of that pronunciation, which is Tai Chi or Qigong standing meditation. And interestingly, most often referred to as universal pillar practice. As I started looking into these relationships at first kind of a spurious, maybe intuitive look at these political archetypes in relation to 4. As I started to look into 4, it became an undeniable consciousness pattern that all too frequently there are the Trinity and an unsaid fourth aspect. And in relation to oligarchical powers that be, the fourth monkey is the only one that they can't use. It's the only one that openly communicates, looks, and listens. And so that's the patriot, right? That's the person who is not a patriot, isn't fighting for the government, not necessarily being a protester, not a politician. Actually, if you look at the definition, it normally phrases it in one who loves country. And so in a place where the First Amendment is valued, open sharing of information is really like, I call it the oligarchy contrast or the crusher, because the way to really take it control back is to get information out there.
No, that was the whole part of the reasoning of me even taking my name, is thinking that as a patriot is kind of like what you said, is just putting out information to help with freedom of the mind and shit. It wasn't like I'm some, I'm trying to say I'm some dude who's locked up and ready to fucking start blasting people, Yeah.
Right, that's not exactly it.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people.
When I was trying to share the idea originally, like a true neophyte, excitedly calling literary agents and so forth, and they were like, get out of here, kid. But, several of them remarked something like, well, you're not a politician and you're not a veteran. How are you going to write about patriotism? Well, the whole point was that in this country, we're not, in the past, it's a patriot is like a it of the patriarchy, of the archy, whatever it may be, usually represented by a patriarch, whatever. But so in this country, everyone's his own or her own archy. We're all equivalent beings. So in this country, patriot has a more empowering, individualized kind of connotation. In the past, you were just following orders, right? So yeah, they get the order followers type of programming confused with patriot.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to even say it, but because of the fact of my name is New York Patriot, even on Instagram, people just see my name and assume that I'm all of a sudden a Trumpster. And then, like, 2 weeks later, when I post something they don't like, they start spazzing on my shit. And it's like, have you not looked at any of my other stuff? Like, what the fuck?
Well, you're doing something right when you get beef from both political sides. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do.
Something right. So independent thinkers, I think, get heat from both sides, right?
For sure.
Yeah. I really like how you define patriot, Ethan, because it just reminds me of like somebody who's not afraid to like stand alone, right? And like let the truth stand for itself. It's not necessarily about a country or an idea. It's just you want to speak the truth and help propel society forward, right?
Yes. Thank you for saying that. It's so well said. And isn't that what we really remark to and look up to leaders for, right? The
Should
guy
be.
that says, you know what, it's different. Hey, what? He's right. And in speaking up and saying something, we all have experienced this before, where instead at first you think people are going to be on your side. They're like, no, you better be quiet. You're rocking the boat.
Right.
And another parallel, the wise monkeys is like an adage with an image, right? It's a story unto itself, but not necessarily needing to be told. But it has that maybe archetypal energy of the Trinity and the unsaid fourth that is kind of made up of the three and is its own thing as well. And the allegory of the cave also has 4 characters. Mostly people had remarked that there's 3 types of characters in the allegory of the cave. And, when this book was around, there was only like 20 copies, so I've heard, and now it's gone on to affect all world history. And The Republic is the book that the allegory of the cave is in. The 4 characters, again, they run parallel with these archetypes. There are the chained prisoners, and they are like the idiots, right? And there are the unchained prisoners. They're so transfixed on the orientation of the images displayed on the cave wall by the captors that they don't even need chains. Just like, they say the elephant, when you train it after having a chain on its foot for a while, all it needs is a little string. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, you could tie it to like a straw and it's going to think it can't go anywhere.
Yep. And we're all like that. We're all conditioned in some way or another. And the more we question if it's so about ourselves, the better we enhance past it. And so the captors, of course, are the elitists displaying fake imagery, totally in control of information, in this case, utter BS.
Yep.
And then there's the freed prisoner, which is the one that's kind of not necessarily counted and sometimes forgotten and looked to as just prisoners and the captors often enough. But the freed prisoner gets, shoved through the tumult of getting out of the cave. He's injured. He comes out, and eventually he realizes that everything he saw in the cave was false images appearing real, which I like to use that for fear.
I like that. I like that.
Fear is false images appearing real, right? And so he something like eventually he there's a certain undefined amount of time that goes by, and he is working for a guy or a slave to a master, as he refers to it, and he says, "'Tis something like it's better to be a poor slave to a poor master than live as they do, than live in that cave with them." But he goes back and he tries to reveal the truth to them, and they all attack him.
Well, that's...
So sorry for the roundabout story.
No, I think that's... That's great. It makes me think of, I watched Good Omens yesterday. I don't know if you've ever heard of that show.
I might have heard of it, but
it's pretty funny. It's like a Prime show. It's totally a cult. It's an angel and a demon named Crowley, and they're both like basically trying to. They didn't want the world to end. The Antichrist was being delivered, and somehow Crowley, the demon, the one with the fucking conscience, which is fucking weird, he like kind of went to the angel, and he was like, because they're in charge of like battling and whatever's supposed to go on. He's like, I really don't think like everybody deserves to die. He's like, maybe we can try to like raise the Antichrist and make him just like normal and not destroy the world. So it's kind of funny, but fuck, I forgot where I was going with that now. Fuck, what were we talking about before?
Something about the freed prisoner.
Oh, yeah. So like in one of the episodes, they're just kind of going through timelines about like how they stayed kind of contacting each other and have been in same places at same time. And they even go to a point where like the thing of Jesus and the angel and demon are standing there and they're fucking nailing Jesus to the cross. And even the demon's like, what the fuck? What did he do? And they're like, what did he say that's got so many people upset? And he said, be good to one another. And he's like, well, that'll do it. But it's like the dude who's trying to tell you the truth got fucking nailed to the cross.
Yeah, Jesus totally parallel with the freed prisoner, and that story actually predates the Jesus story, which is of course related to other stuff, whatever. But so the story of the Republic and Plato's Cave.
I like that Plato's Cave idea. That's that
makes me think of something that your esoteric listeners will appreciate. Every theology begins with a set of 4. Everyone. I haven't come across one, I should say. There might yet be. I've never come across a theology that doesn't begin with the masculine and feminine contrast and the God and its, if it's not a devil orientation, it's contrast that's trying to pull it down, if you will.
I've never thought of that. You have the 3, but then the oppressor or the other side. So that does make 4, actually.
Yeah, there's every single theology begins with those 4 archetypes. And if you even look at it further in line with what I'm talking about, Adam can be seen as the idiot. I'll do it. I'll do whatever. And Eve is the zealot. Believe me, believe. Come on, do it. And God might be the patriot. There's various different interpretations beyond that to find if it reflects one situation or another. And to that, we might often find ourselves being in one or the other archetype at occasional times. We might hold back on information because we have to do something. I don't know.
And it's funny though, the serpent is always the elite one.
Sure.
Withholding the information.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Using the information for his own gain. Yep. Right.
That is interesting. You said
or
that.
the adversary. Right. So I know what you mean. Like you need an adversary to like sharpen yourself against, to something to combat with. Otherwise. It's great to be good, but like, what's the purpose of good then?
I mean, it even goes into magic. The Yadhe Vadhe formula. That's 4.
And I think of the Tetragrammaton. The book that I'm working on right now is called The Fourth Initiation, and I'm just in looking. I kind of conceived the idea before the etymology, so I could be off, and I could be at least interpreting only a layer of the Tetragrammaton. But if you just look at the basic etymology of Tetragrammaton, it's not saying necessarily 4 measure. Gram means measure, and tetra means 4. It's more so saying 4 grammation. Grammar and gram, these are the same words.
Program?
Right? Well, that's the same word too, probably. But what I'm saying is that grammar and gram, like grams for measuring, these are the same root. And so tetragrammaton has the affix of that's equivalent to or near Asian, right? So what does tetragrammaton mean? It almost means the four language, the four grammar, right? So what is tetragrammaton? It's the four grammar, the way of perceiving conceptualities by way of four.
Oh, I can totally see that tied to the Kabbalistic tree, because you have like the princess, the prince, the king, and the queen. Honestly, in my opinion, as you go up that does change kind of your outlook and reality and knowledge of this world.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. And I think even just the silly idiot, zealous, elitist patriot model, there is an ascension in that.
Right? Almost the same thing. Yeah, kind of.
And then the patriot, the sharer of information, is of course the most ascended. And the tree of life has the four dimensions, right? Where the most real is to us, being gross, mundane mortals. We interpret it as being the most subtle, but it is from the most subtle that our material realm forms. And this corresponds with the tetragrammaton as well. Of course, it's a Hebrew word with a Greek title. Of course, they correspond. And so the Yod He Vah He is actually in part, again, another layer, symbolic of points, lines, planes, and solids, which are the four dimensions of geometry. And we can find the four dimensions of geometry in almost everywhere, right? But definitely in the tetragrammaton. Another example of four language, like what does that mean? Like esoterically or spiritually, why would God have the title of four grammar as well? Well, if you look at one of the oldest words on the planet that doesn't even have a spelling, it's so old. It just has a symbol, is the symbol Om, which is expressed in A-U-M. And there's a nice, beautiful trinity. And the unsaid missing fourth aspect of Om, which is related to God and godliness and the vibrational quality of creation of the universe in Vedic conceptuality, but not limited to that. The fourth aspect is silence.
You know, it's funny. I was just wondering if it was like an S. That's so fucking funny. The word started with an S.
It's silence. And it also, that is the vocalization of Om. And of course, this powerful, oldest symbol on the planet has many layers. But another a philosophical layer beyond the enunciation of Om is that it's symbolic of four states of consciousness. And that's when I learned that's when I was like, oh, wait. Because again, I just kind of like conceptualized the idiot, zealot, elitist, patriot model as a way to express these archetypal aspects of psyche that I was seeing in the geopolitics and national politics and so on. But when I learned about Om being symbolic of consciousness, I realized that, you know, this is a much older idea that, you know, I kind of latched onto rather than even conceptualize. So Om, the four states of consciousness are quite simple. Wake state and dream state. If we're lucky and not suffering from insomnia, we go through these states on a daily basis. The third state is deep awakening. And this is equitable to being in the zone, right? Like having that idea, focused. Like this relaxed focus, you don't even know how you did it. And it could be an artistic or athletic or magical.
It's funny. I was just thinking athletic. That's where my mind went first. Is like I think with a lot of like athletic shit, you don't even realize what you're doing or how you're doing it. You're just doing it.
100%.
And practice.
100%. And that's why they call all these things artistries.
So that's why you got the Olympics.
Yeah. Well, and people realize this often, but maybe don't think about it and conceptualize it enough. It takes a lot of consciousness to be athletic, right? To do athletic things requires a whole series of practice that you might not have seen before, that you just saw him do this one little thing, but he'd been practicing aspects of it since he was three. So waking and dreaming is the first polarity of the Om symbol, and there's deep awakening and deep dreaming, and deep dreaming is symbolized by the point beyond the veil. So whenever you hear it's beyond the veil, it's related to the Om symbol, among others, but Om being so old that it's oriented. And so the veil also parallels with the Eastern concept of the Sea of Mara, which is the suffering that you're in. The shitstorm. I assume I can say that.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
This is the redundancy of the physical realm that we're in. When we can get past that, which is equivalent to swimming across a great sea, then there is the deep dreaming, which is equivalent to Christ consciousness, Buddhahood, and so forth. This is rarely attained.
Do you think that parting of the sea might be a symbolism of that with Moses?
That's a great relationship. And I mean, Moses is parallel with Hermes, the Trismegistus, or father and son. Sometimes Asclepius, and I know that if they're not directly considered the same, that they have a father and son relationship sometimes, and therefore that's the god of wisdom, right? So crossing the seas, parting the waters, there's your path to wisdom, right? So
and Moses used to have a staff that turned into a snake as well.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And Saint Patrick has even the symbology of casting out the snakes. Ganesh wears a snake belt, right? And if we stay basic, we'd be like, oh, they're bad. They got reptilian energy. Well, they're controlling it. That idea of casting out is controlling energy that might be neutral, but it often is. If we're in the Sea of Mara, right, that's that place where it's eat or be eaten. The ocean is like a serious place, right? So you get past that and you control those basic elements.
I find it interesting that you add an S to the end of ohms, because like I was even saying before, I was like, I was just thinking in my head, I was like, let him say a word that starts with an S. Because like even the AUM to me, like again, like I say this a lot, and I've said it before plenty of times. I do think letters themselves are sigils in a sense, and like you have the A, which I always think can go back to the pyramid or all-seeing eye in a sense. You have the U, which is a cup that the Scarlet War has, and then you have the M, which in my opinion is. This is when it gets weird. It would be the Twin Peaks, because I love Twin Peaks. We can use it that way. That is the heartbeat without the coming down. And it's just two pulses going up. Basically, in my opinion, breaking out of gravity and breaking out of the Matrix. I could be wrong with that, but I had also often thought that...
Interesting. I know for a fact the S is related to snake. And if you look at all words that have the S, they have that kind of... Oh, that's an interesting energy that word connotates. Yeah. That idea behind that word, So S is definitely related to the snake for sure.
Yeah, and when you said that, I was like, could that be symbolizing coming down the tree from the top three or going up the tree towards the top three? You know what I'm saying? Like that S would... It's just, you saw when you want to start playing games with like how the shit's actually drawn and what it would look like. I could see it, representing that stuff.
Right.
Well,
beautiful.
Like with Om, you have to have like a silence to reverberate and vibrate the noise into. And then also like the S looks like a sound wave too,
beautiful.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. And like Eric even had just said.
And that silence is, someone just said the snake is Kundalini. Yes, it is. It's an energy that we're seeking to control and raise. right? The Tibetan Buddhists remark that our condition is equivalent to being in a tube. You can go up or you can go down. Don't stop, whatever you do, but you really have very limited choices.
You know what's funny? We had Tommy Chong on. Now I don't know if it was on the Spiritual Gangsters.
That's so dope.
Or if it was on the Occult Rejects, but he did make a comment, and it's small little things. I'm like, this guy knows what's up. He even said himself, he's like, we're already on Earth with gravity. We're as far as we can go already.
Right.
He's like, you can only go up from here. I was like, he might be onto something.
Well, I remember
when we can deal with all these esoteric folks talk about, well, when you can overcome the four elements, right? And they kind of say it in as mysterious and elusive a manner as that, right? And might that be, the four different types of the zodiac? Might that be, all these different states of consciousness that are related and depicted, and even might it be just not reaching a point of I understand the Trinity and therefore understand completeness, where you go to the next peak, right? What do they say? Every answer leads to a new question, right? So 4 is also this inspiration to keep going, right? And to keep unfolding and expanding. And, to that, we're in a tube esoterically. You know how we form as a being? We start as a tube. We're a tube and everything else is around us. It's all to keep our tube well.
This is going to sound crazy and fucking out there, but I have often wondered, and this is because, again, of Twin Peaks, and you keep bringing it up, the whole, very much like Cooper or people always wearing, suits. I was like, if you think about it, especially when they use the giant guy because he's bald, and, I can use myself as an example if I was wearing a fucking suit. If you look at a bald white dude wearing a suit and only look at the white, it looks like a fucking sperm. And I was like, yo, is that shit done on purpose, though? You never know.
Related to the Travis Snake comment.
Yeah, that made me think of that, too.
I mean,
Thanks,
when
Eric.
you look at, I think valuable spiritual lessons, Om being such an old symbol, it corresponds with so many adages and allegories and stories, and all these old stories and symbols have gone through humanity's dissection of idea, and some have been thrown out. The ones that have stuck around often enough, they have certainly they have different layers of relationships. Often enough, they have a slang and sexualized version as well, right? So it's not. I mean, you can see this in every Freemasonic interpretation of symbology. There's a sexual understanding, and in you name it, there's going to be the unification type of thing. Even just starting off with that duality of masculine and feminine, and good and its detractor. There's what's going to happen? Well, probably they're going to come together.
I know a lot of times,
so
just to add this real quick, just for people to listen, who's listening, even a lot of times when I used to, when I was in the OTO, they kind of once you start moving up, they kind of want you to start doing things and showing up and being a part of stuff. My easy go-to was the Gnostic Mass. I child. It was fucking, you didn't have to say a thing. You just moved around and that was it. That was my fucking duty. And I didn't have to stare at an unattractive naked chick up at the fucking altar for that long because my back was to her as a child. So I found that just to be an easy no-brainer for me to fucking be involved. And a lot of times, I can't remember because it's been so long. It's not that I'm making this up. I just can't remember. There's other things that we would do. But a lot of times, again, it depends on... I can't remember if it was the priestess or the priest. One of them are kind of like the ones who's running the show. Whenever before we would start the Gnostic Mass, before we let everybody into the fucking temple room, we would all, me, the two children, the deacon, the priest, and the priestess, we would put arms around each other, and we would chant Om 3 times before we bring everybody into the fucking room. And they would do the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, or the star ruby. They would clean the room, then we do the fucking Oms, and then we bring everybody in. So I think that's just something I wanted to add. That's interesting.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And yeah, I was just thinking of something that the tetragram, right? And to the idea or the archetype of Thoth and related to Moses, Thoth and Tahuti correspond with Ma'at, who's the feminine one of his feminine counterparts, and they are considered the gods of judgment, right? Yeah. And if you take judgment as an earthly thing, it becomes kind of tainted because the world is pretty tainted. But divine judgment,
totally different,
and it might be, or it could correspond with 4-measure grammar, right? The tetragrammaton is kind of this, and I'm going to build up to something. Wisdom relates to intuition, right? That divine judgment, well, then you're approaching intuition. And what is that related to? Well, divination. Thoth being related to through I forget the name of the table, but different findings in Egypt relate Thoth to tarot. Odin is the archetype in this echelon of gods that's related to Thoth, and he created the divination practice of the runes. And now not many people know about the Taoist version of Thoth.
Yeah, real quick, I do want to add just real fast in case anybody thinks like you're off with this. I can see how you're making a connection. Odin created the runes. Thoth is known for writing, knowledge, and speech. Yes. So writing's included, both of those. So there is a commonality. Somebody wrote something, Odin wrote something. Thoth is known for writing. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That intuition is divine writing as well as divine judgment too. But there's what's called the Benbime table, and it is a origination of, they say, of the tarot, and it wasn't a set of cards, but it was a set of a series on a table of images that were the tarot story, and that was ultimately conceived by the writer, the scribe of all things, Thoth.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you even have Crowley's Thoth tarot deck too. So
that's right. And the Bim, excuse my killing of this pronunciation, I think it's spelled BINBIME, Bim table, something like that. This is where they say that the tarot most likely have its direct origins that they could find. The images, but bug out. Okay, let me just Thoth and Odin are energetically, archetypally related. Fuxi, Fuxi, and his feminine counterpart Nuwa are the Taoist Chinese archetypal energy of Thoth, and
that's interesting. That's making me think about New Wheat. All right.
Well, sorry?
That makes me think about New Wheat and Nu. How like Nu, Nu was an Egyptian god, and then New Wheat was like Crowley's, god.
Very interesting. I wonder if there's something with
like
those
a play,
vocalizations.
Play on letters and words and meanings.
And you often enough, that's another thing with all these esoteric lessons. You can find very one-syllable relationships, not only numerological relationships with things that seem far and disconnected, but you can find the enunciation relationships.
Yeah, like just like the God knew if you were to do his name backwards, you'd get UN, just like the United Nations.
Right. Well, that's scary. So, and Fuxi is given attribution to the creation of the I Ching, which is the divination concept of the East, of course, the divination practice of the East. And so all these wisdom builds up to intuition is what I'm trying to say. That they have divination connections is also interesting. But the tarot really illustrates sacred geometry. I haven't seen too many people talk about this, but the 4 symbols of the tarot, the 4 suits of the tarot, totally correspond with the 4 dimensions of geometry. The swords are the points, the wands or the staffs are the lines, and they call and the runes are called staffs, often because they're made of wood and sticks, but the runes were called staves sometimes too. And again, this staff archetype, this relates to our spine and the djed of Osiris, the backbone of Osiris, but it certainly symbolized great wisdom. And so the swords are the points, the wands are the lines, and the coins are the planes, and the cups are the solids or volume. So if once one starts to kind of conceive the tarot in line with energies, I think it builds on interpreting these, concepts. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the only way.
Isn't there this is making me think of some kind of religious thing, putting a plate over a cup. Doesn't that happen in some kind of religious Catholicism?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Or like having
it happens in the Catholic Mass. So they cover, like after they clean out the chalice with the wine, which is the blood of Christ, then they cover it because they don't want anything to get in it.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
They cover it with a plate after.
See,
and the plate is to catch any crumbs from the bread. Because you can't waste it at all.
See, what I find
Or
interesting,
falls.
what you're saying too about like the plates and the cups and stuff. This is just my take on it. I think the tree of life, those spheres eventually fill up and spill out and go into something else. And it trickles down the tree, and I think as they fill up and spill out, this is what's been changed or whatever. It's hard to explain, but I kind of see what you're going with that. I agree with that.
I think I get what you're saying, and the great wheels on the tree of life, chakras are also wheels. This is what a chakra is, right? And
just like a waterfall with a spinning wheel.
Yeah, like reminds me of like those bath toys as kids. Like when one's full, then it spills to the next one,
and it just keeps spinning.
And sometimes some gurus would talk about if you have chakras, you have a problem. In the sense that what you want to do is consider it like a river, right? And you want your river to be flowing smoothly. Your chakras are like eddies. And if certain things happen and a branch and this and that happen, things get stuck in these eddies, right? And so when we clear our river, when we clear the chakra system, it's as if I got past this. I have some trouble with a dog because dog bit me, and I got past it. Right? Or whatever it may be, when we're stuck in a chakra layer, we can think of the chakra interpretation as like layers as well, in that we have a heart interpretation, we have a vocal interpretation, all these different kind of concepts in the same mannerism, and places to get stuck, right? Like sometimes you'll be talking to people about an event in 2022, they're stuck in 1992, and you're not their uncle, and you can't. Okay, right? So these eddies are meant to be cleared.
Well, and that's why sometimes you even manifest disease in the body because you have a blockage in a certain energetic area, right?
Exactly. I actually think the fish is used for the symbolism that you're going on about. I think it's showing it going with the flow of the current once there's no more blockages.
I
You
love
can
that.
be like a salmon and flow upstream sometimes
I
too,
love that.
up and down.
I met some guy one time, and he was an older gentleman. I was quite young at the time, and myself and a couple of friends were trying to impress upon him that we were wise too. And he was telling us something, and we said, "Yeah, you mean like go with the flow? Yeah, go with the flow. We know that." And he's like, "No. Flow with the flow." And I always thought that was like, that's what the fish does in your metaphysics there, right? It's not necessarily going with the flow, whether it's a salmon or otherwise. It's in the flow with the
Well, and it kind of reminds me, Ethan, of what you were saying before when you brought up the concept of Mara, which is like suffering in like the Eastern traditions, right? Like in Buddhism and stuff. And I remember like in my yoga training, one of our teachers saying like, to get past trauma and stuff, you have to like really embrace your Mara. You can't keep like fighting against it because what you resist will like persist.
That's beautiful.
So again, that concept of like flowing with the flow and like, you have certain aspects of yourself that you don't love, but when you accept those aspects, you can like move past those things more easily.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
First, you have to be off the hook, and then you can start flowing.
Oh man, we're just going with the fishing.
Well, it reminds me too.
Or you're on the hook, and that's why you're not going anywhere.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
they say we're all on the hook. We're based to the allegory. While we're here in samsara, is the mess that we're in. While we're here in samsara, we're all stuck.
And I think the J from Jupiter actually shows that.
I was like,
Which would be the fourth, which is the fourth sphere coming into existence. We're on the hook now.
It's the fourth.
And I think, and maybe this will help what you're building on with the letters. There's certain energetics in lines, right?
And we're not talking about cocaine.
That U formation in the J at the bottom there, that is a total bowl holding in for sure.
Yeah, it's like a bowl or a hook on itself.
May the force be with you. Is may the fourth be with you.
Bug out on this.
Oh shit!
Bug out on this. All right. Well,
and they lose electricity.
Right.
Words and like going forth. Are you going forth?
Go forth. Yeah.
Does that mean forward or tetragrammaton?
Right.
Oh man.
Oh shit. Okay,
I like that.
I have one more for you.
Please
do it.
Okay, so I saw this really random movie on Amazon Prime like a while back. It's called The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Probably not. But anyways, it's a brief synopsis. It's a film about these people stuck in a time loop. And they're stuck in this like singularity, whatever. The day keeps repeating.
It's like Groundhog's Day.
Kind of, yeah, kind of like Groundhog Day. And then they are making a map of like where the same events that they occur in the day happen. And then when they do the points on the map and hold it up against the wall, it looks like a cube. But then the girl figures out that to break the time loop, it's actually a fourth dimensional cube, not a 3-dimensional cube. And that's how they break the time loop, is when they break through the fourth dimension.
That's what Lux keeps on going on about. The same idea right there. He goes on about that with the Kabbalistic tree of life. He thinks it's a 4-dimensional thing that you need to break out of.
What is the fourth dimension is, I think, a profound question. But one correspondence with what are some of the great traditions, Christianity and Hinduism. They both have the overt Trinity. And we're in the Western world, we're pretty familiar with God the Son and the Holy Ghost, right? Mm-hmm. In the East, it's creation. Well, there's the specific gods, but they are symbolic for creation, preservation, and death. But there's also the unsaid is resurrection, is rejuvenation, is rebirth.
Yeah, I could see that as being the rebirth is going back to the spirit, honestly.
Yeah, and that idea of a trial of 3 and emergence through that trial on the 4th is very frequent. Mithras goes into the cave for 3 days, dead. Jesus rises after 3 days. Buddha deals with and overcomes the 3 temptations of Mara, they're called. And I think that relates to what is not necessarily pointing to one thing, but the first 3 levels of Freemasonry, the 3rd degree. Once you're past the 3rd degree, what's next?
Well, and even the 33rd, 34th is apotheosis, right?
Oh,
that's what they say.
It keeps going. It keeps going.
You know, they have four. Yeah, there's 4 elements to it. Right?
Well, no, I'm not denying that there's more than 3. I'm just saying that the 4th connotates the post.
Yeah, no, well, what I was thinking to add to what you said, it's interesting. I mean, this is probably just coincidental, but I think at one point to join the Shriners, you had to be like a high Mason, and now all you have to be is just a 3rd degree Mason, and now you can join it, which I'm wondering if there's any correlation with now it's just 3, and then you can go, who knows, you know. But that clicked in my head when
I don't claim to know how different groups use symbols. But I will point out that different groups try to claim knowledge of sacred geometry all the time, right? Just in the Freemasonic symbols of the square and the compass, right? They're by using that, whether they do or not, that's not what I'm saying. Oh wow, Helen White building. So the compass and the square is sacred geometry. Right, it's symbolizing the control and understanding of these 4 dimensions. Another Freemasonic orientation has the triple tau, the triple T, Greek for T, and in the triple tau is unsaid, sometimes invisible 4th T.
Oh wow.
It's a trinity with the unsaid 4th, and it's upside down. If you look at the triple tau, it's which is the triple cross. You'll see that there is the unsaid 4th T, and they use that for what symbolism I'm not exactly sure, but I think just judging by, one of the first mystery schools in ancient Greek that we're aware of had on the door, "Let none ignorant of geometry enter." Right, and so this of many things, esoterically and exoteric understanding of geometry. So I think that kind of is the reason why certain groups cop on to what are sacred geometry symbols.
Very well said. I like that.
Very interesting. Yeah. So,
is there anything else you wanted to cover, or you? Because I think
not necessarily. I'm just appreciate the involvement.
Oh no, for sure. No, I was going to say I'd love to have you back on again for another topic if you like.
Anytime.
Yeah, no, I thought this was good.
I find that there's the 4 really unites humanity's collective consciousness, which could also be seen as a kind of 4th state, depending on the Trinity that you start with. But when we start thinking about our own thinking, that's when we better it. So the 4, while it may not be demonstrably proven as the thing, it is a set. It is an idea set that helps to ascend towards wisdom and so forth.
No, I have to say you really got me going with this whole 4 thing, even with adding it to like, you have the Holy Trinity, and then there's always the bad guy. That's like the 4th thing that kind of fucked me up and blew me away.
But you need that guy. You need that guy.
You know what? I wanted to say this before when you remarked on that you need the contrast. I'm going to kill again the quote of this story. There's a Hindu allegory of a greater God and a lesser God. The lesser God loves the greater God more than anything, of course. And one day the greater God says, I got to have you go to Earth. Oh, no. Don't, boss. Don't send me there. I'll do anything.
Fuck no. It's a shit show down there. You see what's going on?
Oh, and you got to read Mark Twain's Letters from Earth, which kind of has this perspective of Satan, and he's looking at people and he's in shock of what people do. It's really humorous. I think it was one of his last unfinished works he was working on, The Letters from Earth by Mark Twain.
That's
quite funny.
That's what I think is funny about that show that I mentioned before, that Good Omen show, is because Crowley is supposed to be like the bad guy and the demon. And like, honestly, I hate to say it, he's the one with like a conscience. This is like, do we really need to kill the kids and flood the planet?
Stemming from, I'm sorry to talk over you.
No, it's all right.
I bet it stems from this Mark Twain idea of Satan goes to visit Earth.
Yeah, and that reminds me of the Screw Tape Letters. Both the show and what you just said reminds me of the book, The Screw Tape Letters. It's like this uncle devil and the nephew devil writing to each other about the Christian man that the little devil is in charge of, and he's supposed to try to tempt him all the time. And it's their banter back and forth. It's very interesting.
That is very.
But also too, like I heard this the other day where it was like, you know, if you want to take the story of Jesus and being crucified and then resurrected. Did the people who crucified Jesus are we not then therefore supposed to thank them for their part in his crucifixion because it brought about the salvation of the world?
It's hard for us to.
You need the fourth.
You need the fourth.
Right?
Bug out on this story. Yeah. The lesser God is like, no, please, anything but earth. He's like, look, I know you don't want to go. Here's what you can do. I'll send you to Earth for 1,000 lifetimes as a good being. Or you can go one lifetime as a bad being, as a total evil being. He says, oh, no, why would you do this to me? He says, you can get as much done going down there by being evil as you could get done in 1,000 times being good. Because he would inspire people that are like Patriots and say that look, listen, and observe and say, hey, that's a devil. Let's get him, right? Because that's really what separates us is the elitists that try to use and abuse, you know? And so when we can speak up and go, oh, no, we're not going to let that fly anymore. Like, think about all the poor political theories we have crushed as humanity. You know, not that we're great now. We're still moving up. We're moving hopefully up, but you know, that's a very interesting correspondence that person just mentioned. So I thought that was a funny idea, you know, that relates to what is the use of bad things, right? Well, it's really to inspire good in us.
Exactly. The devil is still God's devil.
That's true.
At the end of the day.
You know what? And I think you mentioned something that was interesting, and this is like a little out there, but like it's kind of funny how like you're talking about you need that contrast or that polarity. It's like, you know, if you think about it, with how TV has worked or film, you have the white and black pillars, and then all of a sudden the contrast of colors. And we've gone from black and white TV to contrasting of colors, and now that really makes everything look so fucking real. You know what I'm saying? That really hooks you in and mesmerizes you. So I just find maybe that's like another play or another weird thing. My mind was going there when we're talking about contrast, and you need that. I'm thinking of the tree and the colors. It's just weird how, like, you know, there is like kind of the God, and then everything else is the contrast or the misconception of it, maybe, or something like that. It's hard to explain, but that was going on in my head.
It makes perfect sense. And what I've found via the four as a kind of philosophy or set to look upon things is that it's a great base of observation. There are often many other ways to look at things, but it's a great start. It encompasses totality completely and most simply, and then you can build from there if one of those solutions to a problem or situation doesn't work. But it's a great base, and in fact, it's just like the Ohm. And you know, all these other series of systems, it is the base. And I'll just remark, the Tai Chi or yin yang system is also based on 4 parts. Mostly we see just the 2. Mostly it's just perceived as the yin yang, which really builds a false duality kind of construct. And this really is a very limited way of perceiving things. The Tai Chi or yin yang symbol is based on major and minor yin and yang.
Yeah, what about the little dots in both parts?
Those are the minor aspects. Exactly. And so the in a sense, the really yin energy is that super subtle dimension, right? That's, the feminine is related to the yin, from which intuition blossoms, and so it's kind of the most subtle dimension.
Very well said. I agree with that.
Fascinating stuff.
So please let everybody know again where they can find your stuff, Ethan, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Ethan Indigo Smith. Again, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and the whole nine. And I wrote The Matrix of Four, which explores this meta philosophy, as I call it, pretty thoroughly, as well as originally I wrote The Complete Patriots Guide, which is where I start with this anti-oligarchy set of 4. And I also wrote, my most popular book is The Geometry of Energy, where I relate meditation with sacred geometry, those 4 dimensions of sacred geometry.
That's another topic to have you on for, because I'd be interested.
No doubt. It's my honor to be with you guys. You guys are so knowledgeable and wise. I bow to you for having me on.
No. Thank you for presenting all your research and all your hard time and your work and your passion, man. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you for having me, really.
So, his show, well, there's a couple of notes in the bottom for him. Go check his stuff out. And Teresa, would you like to plug your show real quick?
Sure. Come check out the Spiritual Gangsters, please, with me and you. It's always a fun time. We always talk to really interesting people. So you can find that on YouTube and all the major podcast platforms. And I'm on Instagram, just my name, at Teresa.Castar as well.
Very nice. Very nice. Awesome. I also want to add real quick, I do have, I mean, if you're watching this live, you already know, but there is a new YouTube that we have out. I do want to, check the notes. They'll be down there. I also want to remind people, I keep forgetting a lot, check out the Element server. I have an idea that I might start doing every once in a while. I'm starting it, I think I think it's Sunday. Fuck, I have to go check and see what I wrote. I think it's Sunday. I'm going to start doing, I'm going to start every once in a while, try to do lives and dropping the StreamYard link into Element and letting fans and listeners jump on, and we'll talk shit and bullshit, or maybe we'll cover a topic. Who the fuck knows what might happen. But join our Element server, because then you might be able to get on the show. It's a little bit of a, thing to sweeten up. And it's totally web-based, so you don't have to download another app if you want. So definitely check out our Element link. There's a lot of other great shows in there, great people that drop great information, and for the most part, everybody gets along. It's pretty amazing. So definitely go check that out. The link is in the bottom. And yes, Ethan, thank you so much for coming on again. And like I said, you definitely be back, my man. And Teresa, thank you for joining me as usual. And that is the end of another NY Patriot show. Until the next one, everybody be well. Later.